Welcome back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast, where we share games. I'm your host, Zach.
And I'm your host, Tyler.
Yeah, Tyler, and we have more beer.
More beer! More beer from Wild Mind Ales.
Our Nontendo platform patron saint,
yes,
if you will.
Not a sponsor, unfortunately.
Which is why I have to call them a patron saint.
Correct. So this is another smoothie-style lactose sour with blackberries. Again, it was blackberries and banana last time, and blackberries and plum this time around. That's interesting.
Why don't you crack that bad boy open?
I will crack it
I'll
open.
quick intro what we're going to talk about today. We're continuing our Nontendo platformer series, 3D platformer for this part of the series, but going down in the future, we might down the line we'll probably do some 2D platformers as well. But we're going to be focusing on actually 3 platformers for a weird reason. But the only one that either of us completed this time around was Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy. It's going to be fun to talk about. But now that we have the beer poured, let's give it
Just a little more
college try. Thank you kindly, dearest friend.
All that yeast right on the bottom. Love that yeast.
Bon appetit. This is my favorite one so far, for sure. Blackberry is an easy win for me, though.
Let's see.
It's because it's definitely the tartest so far, but nowhere close to as tart as like
the sweetest, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Simultaneously, the tartest and the sweetest.
It's also, though, nowhere close to like a sour beer or something in terms of tartness. It's like eating a fresh blackberry. Yeah. You know, not the sweetness, though. The sweetness is a lot, but another great one.
You are getting both of those, both of the fruits here. Again, you know, we've mentioned it twice now. The first beer we drank, that was really all falling back on one of the like 4 flavor notes that were here on the back of the can. But I get both of these. Actually, I get the plum a little more than the blackberry. You feel the blackberry with that tartness, but I'm getting more.
I guess plum. I just don't eat plum very often, so it doesn't come.
Well, I also remember pretty well the beer we had last week, which was blackberry and banana, and the blackberry came across a lot there. Yeah. So I'm comparing it to last week, and the blackberry is not as pronounced here.
Yeah,
but so smooth. Like you mentioned before, I think this has been the case with all of these. They are not that sour, but also like not that carbonated. It's like drinking a smoothie. Really,
it's like an effervescent smoothie.
Yes, indeed.
Also, for those watching on video, I do not apologize for my bedhead because what I just woke up from can only be described as a most righteous nap. It was delightful.
That's good.
I regret nothing.
That's good for you, man.
So let's go forward with our Kramer hair, which is still better than Jack's hair.
Yeah. What is he? A Super Saiyan?
Yeah, he's got some awesome... the physics of it are great, though. Just watch him bounce around with it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Jak and Daxter. So my history with this series is this is my 3rd time not completing Jak 1. I have played Jak 2 to completion 3 times already. If we decide to go and play it again, it will be my 4th.
Which I'd like to now that I've finished this. Go ahead and finish with your history.
And then Jak 3 is the only one I've completed once. Not because I actually prefer Jak 3 to this game, but it's just... it's less consistent than either of these. So it's a little bit harder to play all the way through, but I will go and pick it up and play through a good chunk of it pretty frequently.
Jak 3?
Yeah, Jak 3. Okay. I've only completed it the once. But Jak 2 is definitely my personal favorite from the trilogy because it is only a trilogy.
Sure, we'll say that.
Yeah, but then I've also never played Jak X, though, which has interested me greatly. So, yeah, that's my history with the series. What about you, actually? I don't think I know.
I didn't grow up with a PlayStation 2, but I did have a neighbor friend who had a PS2 and all of the Jak games. We played through this together. I think I missed like one of the levels, but we would play it every day together. So I finished it then, and I think I finished it with another friend as well, because again, I didn't have a PS2. So this is the first time completing it by myself, but I've definitely seen it through twice. I guess this is the 3rd time now. missed a little more of Jak 2, but still saw an equal amount of Jak 2 and up to the end of it twice. Again, the same friends.
Sure.
And I wasn't interested in Jak 3. I liked the more traditional 3D platformer aspects of this because neither of those friends grew up on Nintendo, and I did. So I was pretty well acclimated with traditional 3D platformers.
Collecting all the jazz.
Yeah, which the other two games, and you're going to really jump into this, the other two games sort of put to the wayside. Certainly on the back burner for Jak 2, and I don't even know how prevalent it is in Jak 3. But after playing it again, I will probably enjoy Jak 2 more when we do go back to it. If we go back to it, though, I think we've talked about doing a follow-up episode or two, which it'll be there. So I think after playing this one again, I'm not as hot on it as I was hoping I would be. There's
and not
one
for lack
major
of quality.
No, and I'll talk about that, but I just don't like the platforming, basically, which we'll get into. But that's my history with Jak and Daxter.
In terms of I wanted to touch on the history of it as a game too. So this is Naughty Dog right off of Crash 3, right? This is before, Crash gets handed off to a couple other developers, and Naughty Dog just wrapped up what put them on the map, right? The Crash trilogy, which is a platformer, right? And it's lots of personality to it. It's very quick, bite-sized. You get in, you do a level.
It is. Some of those levels can be finished in less than 2 minutes.
Yeah, it's extremely fast. Lots of personality packed into each one. Fast-paced. And the first thing that you feel booting up Crash Bandicoot, specifically the first game, I remember this moment vividly, is it's very much the camera angle. Everything's placed to where you immediately feel an urgent need to move. Like the way the music, the way that the sound design is, and specifically the way the camera placed, you need to move. And you just do, and you go. No questions. You try to... In fact, when I play it, even though I should be going slower sometimes, I just keep moving forward. Like, it's just how the game... I guess the atmosphere of the game really pushes you to move. And this is very much not that. They went a very different direction. They kept the platforming, but I heard someone describe it as if you were to take Mario 64, right? If you were to take that game and strip out Peach's Castle and plug everything into one another, you'd have Jak and Daxter.
Yes.
And I think that's an excellent idea of what they wanted to do with this game.
And something that you've talked about in the previous 2 episodes, I think you talked about it in the second episode, certainly the first, is this open level design. And
which I specifically said was not this game, and I rescind that entirely.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. As much as I don't really like this game, I probably won't play it again. I don't think it's a bad game. I certainly don't think it's a bad game. And in fact, not liking it is my own personal taste. I think I am smart enough to be able to say, I actually think this is a brilliant game. And I think it's well ahead of its time with several of its design philosophies, and the open level design is one of those. I certainly can't think of anything that it did an open level design like that before it, and very few things that do it after.
Yeah, especially as... nowadays we'd call it like an open world, but like it's not designed like an open world. You go to sections that have their own theme and their own setting, but even within those sections you can look up and see your goals and what you're going for and where you're moving, and it's
and you can leave at any time and go back because they are all interconnected.
And I think one of the best examples is an early level in the jungle where it straight up has a giant central pillar, right? Not one that you're going up and down. It's obviously a goal you want to get to. And then it loops up. It has like a top tier, a mid tier, and a bottom tier of the level that you can pretty much hop down, up, at different portions throughout the whole level. It's not like you were talking about in Resident Evil, a central pillar design. This is not that. You can just hop down, at the beginning of this section. Maybe as you go further on the other side of this area, you can hop up or just back down. Like, it's very much a good example.
What was I saying with Resident Evil?
The central pillar design, where you always have to come back to central pillar to go to the next floor in a mansion or something like that.
I don't think that was me.
It definitely was you. We can pull the clip if you want, but no, it's you're talking about Resident Evil 2, the central pillar in the Mia portion of the level.
Yeah,
or Resident Evil 7.
It's been a while. We played it. 7.
Yeah.
No, I don't recall.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, we can talk about that some other time. But this does not do that, and it's very open, and you can see your goals pretty clearly. There are some nooks and crannies. I rescind my statement from Ratchet and Clank. It is most definitely the early seeds of what I would call open level design.
I think it is open level design. I wouldn't even say that's early seeds. This is doing it better than most things do it today, and even the things that do it, they're so few and far between.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Example
the only thing that I could think of that would resemble a next step would be something like Odyssey, for just how that is the entire philosophy, and it's implemented. Anyway, that's another conversation. But I do think we should play that game because I think it is the next step of this.
Sometime.
Far more interconnected.
Unfortunately, it would defeat the purpose of this
Nontendo.
This series. But there's something else that really speaks to me personally. And I'm sure some of you out there, but me much more than Zach. And that's the UI in this game. I talked about it being ahead of its time, certainly with the actual game design, but the dynamic HUD...
seriously, it is so no information on your screen.
None of it until you need it. If you pick a collectible up, your entire UI is not going to come on. That one UI element is also dynamic. So it'll just show you, this is how many precursors you have.
The whole HUD won't show up. Just your health.
Yes. And you can pull it up. There's just a trigger.
It's not like a pause scroller. You can just press a button and your whole UI shows up.
Yeah. Or hold it until you let go. It'll so it's not even a toggle. Just, I want to look at it for this amount of time, and I will let go of the button now, and it's gone. And then whenever you do something that's relevant to one of the UI elements, that one element will appear on the screen.
Which lets it be an insanely cluttered AI. Right? It lets it be a super cluttered AI with more information than some people might even need. But it doesn't matter.
It is pretty busy.
But, that doesn't even matter.
It doesn't. Because you hardly ever see it.
You hardly need it. And when you pull it up, sure, it might take you a second to find it, but you'll always know where it is when you need that information.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Even games today are only just now starting. That's only just recently becoming the standard.
Yeah, which is a shame.
Yes.
It is.
Yes,
that should be the default way to play Breath of the Wild. I cannot believe.
Yeah, that they put all that on there by default. I cannot
believe they did that.
I didn't even leave the cave. I don't even think I walked out of the initial room that you wake up in before I turned everything off.
So Tyler told me, he's like, dude, when you play this game, because he started a little before me. He said, dude, when you play this game, turn the UI off. I'm like, yeah, you always say that. I'm like, whatever. I immediately hop off, and I'm like, no, this thing's going away. This thing is going away. But yeah, that's a really good point. And there are a couple little touches in this game. I think a lot of what they learned in Crash, having a lot of variety as you go through each little level. And what they did is okay, we like the variety. We like, having a vehicle section. We like having, in Crash it'd be like a swimming section, different aspects. But for Jak and Daxter, they're just let's just make that a part of the level. One of my favorite examples is when you go to the Lurker Island, the dark, where the dark eco is. There's just a whole part of the map that is just one of your zoomer sections on top of the water. And there's a couple different things you can do. You can be off the zoomer if you want, or on it. Changes what you can access in that part of the area. It's just great. It's
I like
really
it a lot.
good.
And you talked about the variety from Crash. You know how I think about Crash. We don't have to talk about it on this podcast.
Shame.
However, the variety in this game is better implemented. Really, it's cohesive. You've got the starting part of the island with your village. Off to the side is the jungle area. Off to another side is the
beach.
Is the beach, which it's all a cohesive landscape that you can walk to and fro.
Even going to the next chapter of the game is. If you want to not use the teleporter, you can just ride your little
and it is
back.
A level. It's got several things for you to collect there, several of the stars to collect in that transition period. But that also makes sense. There's a volcano you'll get to later in the game that has spewed onto this landscape that's separating the first and second part of the game. and flying over that magma is the level. Like
which is
trying to dodge some of that stuff.
I definitely died on that section.
Yes,
that's
definitely.
It can get those bike sections can be pretty tough.
Yes, especially the last one.
Oh yeah, that's rough. Thank God they have checkpoints.
Yeah.
Thank God. There's 3 checkpoints in there, or 2 or 3, and without those, it would be one of the most frustrating things.
It's a little rough to control. It is an early PS2 game,
but you can manage it. What I like about the bike is it is it's pretty unwieldy. If you're just trying to make it, I made a mistake and trying to correct it, you'll go off.
Yeah. It's difficult to correct.
Yeah, you need to be pretty precise with it, and it feels weighty, but also just fast enough. Not like you're blazing, but just fast enough. Mm-hmm. I think it's honestly a really strong vehicle. I
like the bird as well. I think the bird's a pretty good vehicle. It's like Jak. Its jump is a little weird. Especially its first jump. Well, I guess it doesn't have a second jump. It just glides after that.
Sure.
Which you can steer pretty well. I like steering the glide. But that first jump, it completes its entire animation of ducking down and then springing off of its chicken legs. But so it's not immediate. It doesn't feel immediate, and it's really weird to get that timing down, which is also true of Jak and the major complaint I have about the game.
Yeah, I like the momentum of the bird though. Mm-hmm. It really feels good to just get into a run and jump sequence. The
animation is great when you hit the ground, and it's got a really wavy body.
I just made a wave image with my arm without even thinking. It just
because it does that.
It's so flowy.
And then you mentioned the momentum. It's odd. I think it is a little odd because when you jump in a direction, even before you start gliding, you can steer the jump to another side, but the momentum is continuing forward. So it's more how you're going to land and start moving forward. It doesn't really steer the jump in one direction completely. It's got an interesting physics to it.
Yeah, I agree. It's another thing, I guess, since we're talking about things that aren't really the platforming, the combat is probably my least favorite part of the game because there's enough of it to be frustrating.
Yes.
Yeah, and your punch seems to end right before you hit the enemy constantly.
And that's consistent for my complaints about the game. Combat is probably equally disliked by me.
Yeah, and your little spin kick just is not wide enough and you can't hit it fast enough. I want to Crash Bandicoot it where I can just keep hitting circle and just endlessly spin, basically.
And then the cooldown between your moves.
Yeah.
Which it's not like there's a UI element that tells you you're not charging moves. It's just the timing of everything. All of the timing is a little weird. It doesn't feel like any other game. So when you punch someone, you can do a 3-jab combo, I think, maybe 4 jabs. But to go from a jab to a spin,
you can punch, and if you hit jump, he'll do a little uppercut, and then if you hit the punch button again, he'll dive down on the enemy. You can keep yourself pretty safe. So you get a little combo going, but if you wanted to spin and then jump or punch a single enemy, they're probably going to hit you every time because of the weird timing between those two moves. Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. I didn't like.
It's difficult.
Especially it's not fair too, because I've played Jak 2, in which the combat is now far more core to the game and is really good, really fun. So I guess that's it's a little bit unfair for me to have that perspective. But I think even with that perspective, it's just too problematic. They should have either stripped out
a lot of the combat. I skipped an entire section because of both of those things, combat and jumping. The electric water section, I think I got 1 of the stars.
I don't know which one you're talking about.
In the second area where the giant is throwing boulders.
That's my least favorite section in the game. If you go through right now, entirely. I only got 3 of the 7. I was just let's get it out.
I maybe got 1.
It's really dumb. I don't like that area, which is honestly, I think most of the areas are really good.
Yes.
And we can talk about some of our favorites, but I really want to start talking about the platform, because this is where you and I are going to probably have more of a divide, I think.
Yeah. And you play many more 3D platformers than I do, so you've got a different take. You like them more than I do. Not that I dislike them, but you also like Crash.
I love Crash.
I don't.
Which, it's funny, we haven't talked about it yet. I was going to open with it, but I think it'll fit better at the bottom anyway, this conversation. But where Jak fits in the Sony platformer mascot kind of tradition, I guess, of this time. But yeah, I love Crash. I think if I was going to pick a favorite Sony platformer, he wouldn't be one of the main contenders. But talk about a game that I love to just straight up. Like, I remember my friend Jordan, he was playing through the Insane trilogy, and he's like, hey, I'm at this section in Crash 2, you want to keep playing? And we played till like midnight, just throwing the controller back and forth on different levels. Like, there's just so much going on, and it's so urgent and so fast and so fun. It's addicting. And you can play it as a completionist, you can play it as a speedrunner. Like, the game invites so many different styles of play. I think it's brilliantly designed. I would not begrudge anyone for calling it Sony's best platformer. I think they're brilliant games. I know you would. Crash 3, I actually would say, is one of the best platformers ever made.
Sure. We're not going to talk about it on this podcast.
Yeah, Tyler's really not a fan.
Fundamentally disagree. I played it. I picked it up on PlayStation 3 after playing this game just to see if I was wrong. Which you may think I'm wrong, but I just wanted to reaffirm that for myself. Play it again. I played through the first world, and I watched a few videos on the Insane Trilogy. I was about to pick it up and maybe use the Steam refund policy, but we had other games to play. But I don't get it. It just doesn't click with me. I'm not going to begrudge anyone for liking it, but I would like to exchange words for people that say it's brilliant. Yeah. I don't think it's brilliant.
Yeah, which is fun because you're in the vast minority. Yeah, so make it for a good conversation. Hey, join our Discord. Tell him why he's wrong.
Yes, tell me why I'm wrong. He'll read all your comments.
I'll force feed them to him. Fear not.
Yes, I will read them, of course. But $2 tier on our Patreon. Get in there and yell at me.
Yeah, that's. I would pay $200 for that privilege. So. No, sorry, man. Keep going.
Just going to put on Instagram, a hot take, this game sucks. $2 to come tell me why I'm wrong.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a penny for your thoughts taken to a sick, dastardly corporate extreme. Anyway, keep going. Talking about this platforming, man.
Yeah, so they were coming right off of Crash 3, and that's very apparent. The vehicles in this game, they, especially the hovercraft, controls almost exactly like the hovercraft or like the water vehicle that you have.
You're just giving them more fun space to explore with it.
Yes, I mean, like all Crash levels, they're linear levels that you're using this watercraft on. Here you get that open area, that open level design of Jak and Daxter, but it controls almost exactly the same. And of course, Jak is more mobile than Crash, and he's got a few extra moves in his kit, but the weight of the platforming and I guess the physics are very similar. That's the main reason I picked it up.
You even have a spin attack.
Yeah. You've got the spin attack.
In fact, I would argue, sorry to interrupt, but I would argue that really they didn't, in fact, they regress a little bit, I'd argue, in the actual core platforming functions of its character.
Sure, which I think we'll talk about a bit at the end of our Jak conversation. This is clearly steering away from being a 3D platformer, especially when you take into account the other games. This is a 3D platformer, but they're exploring several other things, and in fact, I'll just sort of make an aside here. We were talking about 3D platformers in general, the entire genre. Other than Nintendo, you don't really have much of, and I guess maybe Crash. You don't have much of anything else that is solely focused on 3D platforming. Pretty much everything else that I can think of, you've got Banjo-Kazooie, maybe a Hat in Time.
I don't know about Hat in Time. Definitely.
That are solely focused on platforming. Everything else has the platforming facilitate the rest of the experience. Like this, you've got the combat, you've got the exploration, and the vehicles. There's plenty of vehicle.
I mean, just pick up Sly
sections in this game,
and which I mean, the main levels in Sly are very built around how much you platform. You have to bounce around, find get through little platforming gauntlets here or there. But it's far more about the actual overall level. The worlds, I know I'd love to have you play Sly. It's amazing, but basically, I mean, the way they do it from Sly 2 and 3 is they're just an open environment. Sometimes you can go down into a separate area that's hosted within that environment, but usually they'll like have objectives and things to do just put throughout that environment. It's really good game design, and that platforming is facilitating, trailing missions and little combat exercises or entire full mini games of their own for hacking mini games and stuff.
And then you get to Ratchet and Clank, which is barely, especially with Rift Apart, I probably wouldn't even call it a 3D platform. I think that's what we sort of arrived on was this is mostly an action game. There's almost no platforming in that game.
Yeah.
So aside from Nintendo and some very few edge cases, you don't get any just straight up 3D platformers that are just about the platforming.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, I recently played the Spyro trilogy again. I think you'd make that argument that it's mostly about the platforming.
It's been a while.
I think you'd make that argument, but there's definitely more than is going on in Mario for sure. Probably just as much as Crash, though. I can see that argument.
Especially in Spyro 3, which is the best Tony Hawk game I've played.
It's so good. It's so fun. I love that.
I spent so many nights on the skateboarding sections.
It's so good.
It's so silly. But... yeah, there are few exceptions. Exceptions, of course, but not that many. And most things that are focusing on that have 3D platforming are doing mostly other things. I'm very curious to start our next game, Mirror's Edge. I think that's mostly platforming.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to play.
I'm so excited to play
We've gone off topic, though. Let's go back.
We have platforming. I hate it in this game. I don't hate it.
I'd like to touch base if we have time later. I want to know what your favorite core platforming is in any video game. Like, what game the platforming is your favorite?
Probably Mario.
No, I mean, I want you to name the game. Does that make sense?
Sure. I don't know.
Yeah, let's think about it, but let's talk about why this one is not your favorite.
So, just coming off of Ratchet... what is it? Crash 3! Crash Bandicoot 3! You've got the physics that are ripped almost straight out of that game. The weight of the jump, and you brought this
heavy
to my attention. I hadn't really connected the dots yet, but it's the timing and the distance, the momentum, all of the first jump, which is the most important, and also the timing of the double jump. There's a very specific window.
Yeah, it's
for that.
Rough. For an more open design, I do not think the double jump timing works.
Or
because you have to decide before you jump, basically, or very shortly after you jump.
It's basically before you jump.
Yeah, it might as well be before you jump.
The window's so short, and I think it doesn't. I don't think it works here. But not just the timing and the way it's implemented, but the incessant use of the double jump in places where you're not even doing platforming. It's just totally innocuous stairs. Every one of them are double jumps. Why? It's completely irrelevant.
And what I think it comes from is this idea of making an interesting decision in something like Crash, right? Are you going to take that fast? If you look at people trying to get the platinum relics in Crash levels, they are trying to make single jumps as often as possible, right? It is all about speed versus how much longer it takes you to double jump. It intentionally slows down your momentum too in something like Crash. It's a deliberate decision that you have to make. And in an open environment like this, where it's far more about exploring through platforming, it's just rips you right on out.
Yes.
It's brutal.
And you're much better at 3D platformers than I am. I think I might have a depth perception problem. I was definitely thinking about it in this game, but just like the a spin attack you mentioned, or was it the punch that misses the enemy a lot?
Oh, both of them?
Attack?
But
sure.
Specifically the punch, like it feels like it just stops short, like just like right there.
Always, but that's also true. And I mean, if you want me to, I can make a cut from all of my B-roll of every time I miss the platform because of that first jump.
Dun, 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 dun.
It's really terrible. It looks like your feet are touching the edge of the platform, but you missed the jump.
Yeah,
because you should have double jumped, and then the distance that double jump is taking you is not even that great.
No, I agree.
It's not very fun for me.
No, I agree. I see where you're coming from. I, as someone who has come from this series and enjoying this game a lot, playing through them pretty frequently, I've gotten used to it, I guess, but I'm willing to acknowledge that, yes, the double jump mechanic is poor, that there were many times where it was not my fault where I missed that jump because it seemed like I was going to make it.
Yeah.
There were many times. I'm willing to totally concede that. I think it comes from the territory of trying to kind of, push this into a more open environment and, having to have a totally free camera now, versus that follow one.
That
I can see why that issue came about.
It's there.
I can see why that issue came about. It's not an excuse, but I can see where it came from, and I'm glad that they went the direction they did anyway.
Sure.
That being said, I don't think the platforming is poor, though. I really enjoyed, the roll jump. I enjoy, kind of being able to jump high out of that. I enjoy, your ground pound gives you a little bit of air. Lots of little touches that make exploring and platforming fun. And really, that issue for me was only isolated to more than a handful, but a couple specific places or like parts or styles of platforming, maybe you might be able to say. Overall, though, I didn't find much issue with it, especially as the game went on and the environments got stronger and stronger and stronger.
They do. And two of my... Was there anything else? No, I think that's about it on platforming. Do you want to talk about levels?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
What are some of your favorite?
The snow level's my favorite.
The snow level is, I think, maybe my second favorite. It's what I remember most, with the exception of the Precursor Gorge. So I haven't played this since I was a kid. I didn't play the HD remake. I played it in the PS2 era. And it's been burned into my memory, the Precursor Gorge, that one major open level with the car, and because it also is the only place that uses the Precursor imagery to the extent that they do. Like, you'll see Precursor like carvings in the walls, and of course you're picking up the Precursor orbs all around the place, but there's actual architecture buried under the ground and protruding from the mountain all over this place. So it is the Jak and Daxter imagery, for me anyway, and I also remember having a ton of fun with it. Not that much this time around.
Oh, I love it still.
I had a bunch of fun just driving, but I intentionally did not get 3 of the eggs. Chasing the 2 dragons around, or like the little goblins that you have to catch them with the car. But I thought it was complete BS. I would, get them to go around a corner, and then I would turn around and go through the other corner, and I'd line it up immediately, shift course, and I thought it was nonsense. So I'm not going to waste my time on poorly implemented nonsense. I thought that was that. And then there was the second ring
the blue
trial.
Rings.
The blue
I skip
ring.
that one every time.
So hard.
Yeah, I skip it every time.
I was being really stubborn with it, and I think I tried 8 times. I didn't even
attempt it this time.
Really? You knew. I didn't remember. I did the first one all right, and then I kept, you get like 1 or 2 rings further every time, and I was being so stubborn.
It's so frustrating.
I skipped
and it's so long.
It's crazy long.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine with it being that difficult, but it's so long. You lose like roguelike
Minutes,
levels
yeah,
of process
minutes of
progress when you do this. It's like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
But I still think that's one of my favorite sections.
It is still one of my favorite as well. It would be my third favorite.
Yeah, I love it quite a bit. But my favorite's the snow level, bar none, because I think it does what they were going for the best. In terms of the open environment, there are a couple areas where when you interact with a certain object, it will turn on some precursor vents across the whole world. This has one of those, but what's cool is the environment's constantly changing, and it is like loops in under itself, over itself. There are huge sections. It all feels very uniform, and you explore it for a while with no progress. This is versus others where it's like you know exactly where you're going, exactly what to do. You kind of have to look around, and then you kind of find your way to, I just opened the door to the main fortress, and it's the environment where I found myself able to kind of circumvent having to go the prescribed way. I was able to get around quite a few obstacles. But a lot of little secrets hidden, in like with enough visual cues to where it's not obscure, like finding your way down to turn that vent on. It's underneath a massive portion of ice, and you can kind of intuit, okay, a way in has to be around here, and you can go find it pretty easily. It's again really well designed in terms of an open environment. It kind of plays off of other parts of itself very well. Definitely my favorite.
Now, that's the one other place that I remembered, aside from the beach. It's on all the marketing.
Yeah, and it's
the
your
beach
first
area.
one, yeah.
Yeah, and the village. But, yeah, the snow level is also the other level that I remembered very clearly. And everything you said is correct, and I agree with. It's the biggest display of everything that they're going for working correctly. And them really achieving that, the team really achieving that. However, and this is a huge inconsistency on my part, but the underground spider level is my favorite.
Oh, interesting.
Because there is a very large platforming gauntlet in that game, or in that level, which I think is the best part of the game. I actively dislike the platforming in this game, and I think that is awesome.
I think, yeah, and there are a couple little... he's talking about, so there's this, basically, they're trying to excavate this massive precursor robot, and they just have, like, tiers of platforms built around
scaffolding everywhere.
With some elevators and stuff, and you can be... there are fire vents going off. There are enemies that you cannot get around over at all, but they'll like get tired, and then you can go in and hit them. So you kind of have to kind of go back, plan it. You'll be swinging off these poles, and you can feel your progress as you get higher and higher and higher. And the camera's pretty forgiving and well implemented in that section. I agree. I love that particular gauntlet.
It was my favorite part of the game.
Yeah, it's so fun, and a lot of good there. I'd say another level for me though would be the I really enjoy having to do anything with the bike. So going back, I went very late game. I went back to the Lurker Island.
Oh, so did I.
Yeah. I just think it just fits the flow of the game for me. So I went pretty late game back to it. It's the only one I completed 100%.
I don't think I finished any 100%.
Yeah, I finished this one 100%. It's my favorite one to play, probably. It is a little bit more sectioned off than something like the snow level, but those sections, you have an air bike section, the one I was talking about, where you can either be off it or on it and find two different pathways. It's a huge island. There are like logs bouncing down this huge ramp, and just fun little sections to play with there. There is an annoying little combat arena challenge. It was easy. It's just annoying.
Annoying, yeah.
Yeah. So, but a little fun eco events to play with. Just a really well designed, fun environment.
It's good.
You catch the little stoat or whatever it is. It's good.
Yeah, it's definitely good. It's up there among my favorites. It's not the top three. Those are my three favorites. I didn't like the jungle very much. I liked the verticality of the level.
Yeah, I just think it's the most visually... I
had trouble finding things.
I agree.
I don't know.
I guess I just know it by now.
Yeah. For some reason, I think it was the main objective in that is to turn on all the towers, and I got up to the top of the tower and was able to do the first thing. So you get to the top of the huge spire, and then it shoots a laser down to break like an ice block or whatever, and it allows you to control another tower. That control box was not, at least for me, was not telegraphed. So I'm running around the whole level. How do I do this? And then I couldn't find the boss. There's a boss in that level you can fight. Couldn't find that. And no, I think those were actually the only two that I didn't get in that level.
That's fair.
But I was just running in circles trying to figure out what to do.
No, that's fair. I get it. I guess I just know it by now, you know. So
the beach is a great first area. I'm really happy that's the first area. Because
it doesn't have to be either. You can go straight to the jungle, or you know, which is nice. But
it is clearly pointing you in that direction.
Yeah,
but
like
it is.
Samos the
There are
Sage will tell
3
you.
levels, all open to you immediately. You've got the village, which there's several things to do in the village. It's not really a huge platforming
kind
level.
of your hub.
But there's activities to do there. Then you've got the beach and the jungle, and then you only have to do one thing in the jungle to unlock the Skull Island or whatever that you were talking about. So really 4 levels in the first open area, and the
and you
beach,
can see them all from certain spots.
Yeah.
Like it's actually
very
impressive for a PS2 game.
Agreed. But I like the beach being the prescribed first level, because it's doing everything we've talked about, telegraphing all of your different objectives. But because of the way the beach wraps around the bend of this mountain, and the way you walk around the opposite bend to get to the level, you can see it all. Really, the whole level is there for you to see. Nothing is particularly hidden. There's a few things that are locked until later in the game, but it's there. You just have this huge level open to you, and
very well telegraphed objectives.
Exactly. It's a great showcase for what the game has to offer, and I think it's a expertly placed and designed first level.
I agree. Yeah. So I mean, honestly, everything we've said, even though you say this isn't. Let me rephrase that. This is what's interesting to me. Everything we've talked about is almost entirely positive. Almost really, sure, a little nitpick here. You don't like the platforming overall, maybe, but you've
and the combat.
expressed
There's too much of it.
Yeah, there's too much combat. But you've expressed even that the platforming may just be a you thing. Like, there are many people who laud incredible praise on this game, and yet it is rarely talked about. It is not mentioned in people's favorite platforming games. It is always overshadowed by 2. But for most people, even those who prefer 1, typically the conversation is overshadowed by 2. Mm-hmm. It's very odd. So this game comes out of, obviously, the Sony platforming mascot, a kind of who's going to be the Sony mascot. And now, of course, Sony just has 5 because a lot of them are so good. But, Sly came out of this. Crash was the earliest, and after Crash, people were like, oh, let's get on this. This is a huge thing. No, Nintendo, nobody's going to try to unseat the king, right? But Sony's, there's this huge space for platformers right now. So you got Naughty Dog comes out with Jak and Daxter. You got Sucker Punch coming out with Sly, right? You have Spyro, Insomniac, right? Doing Spyro. And then you have, why am I blanking? The other big one. Ratchet and Clank, right? Which is just craziness. It's
a lot going on.
Those are some really strong games. There are also some that we didn't talk about because nobody remembers them.
Sure, and those really aren't Sony games. In fact, most of them were on multiple platforms, I think. Maybe they had the biggest audience on PS2, but everything you mentioned there, those were Sony properties at the time. I mean, not like it is today. Sony has PlayStation Studios, just like Microsoft. They're eating up all of the small guys.
Yeah.
But they were exclusive games at the time.
Yeah, and honestly, all of them are really strong. They all have something going for them. If I were to pick a favorite, it's Sly. But, I mean, all these are just really strong games. And out of all of them, this guy gets talked about the least.
Yeah,
Spyro gets his remaster. Crash gets his remaster. Ratchet and Clank gets a new game.
Often enough.
Yeah.
It hasn't even been that long since the last one.
I'd say Sly might be, Sly's getting less attention than all the others, but even Sly had a movie pitched a while ago that got a lot of progress made on it, and, you know, he gets more discussion than this guy, unless you're talking about...
this guy?
Yeah, then unless you're talking about Jak 2, usually, which, when people are talking about Jak 2, they're usually not entertaining the Sony platformer mascot idea.
And even then, they're not talking about Jak 2 very often.
Yeah, and so this game, Jak 1, is what Naughty Dog brought to the table after Crash as the platforming mascot for them. And it is, in my opinion, based on what I can see from its impact and the way that the other games are treated, the other series, it lost. Yeah. You would argue that it's a better game than Crash. I'm sure I could find people who would say it's better than Spyro or Sly, or I'm sure I could find this game's fans. I'm sure there are a lot of them. Here's what I believe the issue is, and this is not original to me at all. I'm going to say that up front. A lot of other people have this idea, but it's an identity problem. It's an identity problem with this game. We've talked so much about, well, they were exploring these ideas, they were trying these things out, and it feels like a lot of that is what they were doing. This has this kind of bright, fun atmosphere, some characters, I guess you could call them that, if you really wanted to, and I just don't think it had a core draw. Like, Crash has that energy. Spyro has that, levity and charm, right? And the characters in Spyro are way more memorable than these characters, and they say an equal amount of lines. But the way Hunter holds himself in Spyro...
That's the cat?
The cheetah, yeah. Just the way he moves is so arrogant.
I like him a lot.
Immediately remember him, playing as the other characters in Spyro 3, Sergeant Bird. Just great characters. They're super memorable. Sly, obviously, for them, it's the story and the charm of that.
Yeah, and the characters are much more front and center there.
Talk about, something that they talked about, the developers, Naughty Dog, talked about how this was based on Saturday morning cartoons. Sly, I would argue, does that 10 times better. Sly, the whole pitch is a interesting, kind of a little bit meaningful even Saturday morning cartoon, especially when you hit 3. I think of all of them, Sly has that presence the best. So it's just interesting to me because not one particular thing outside of the open level design sticks out, which is more emblematic, as we've already discussed, of where they were going. Right, what Jak 2 would become, what Uncharted would become, right? An action adventure, right? That's what I think they would come from. And so you have this identity crisis until Jak 2. When I say Jak 2, something sits, it has this personality, this catalog in our brains, especially as us growing up with it, as Jak 2 has a feeling. I remember seeing someone play that for the first time, and I'm like, I don't know what this game is, but I want to play it. It just has the city, that kind of dingy.
And one of my favorite things in that game is stealing cars.
Oh,
the way you first of all, they're hover cars, so you've got the weight and physics of them floating around, but also just the weird rubber band physics of Jak's body.
If you pause it, I'm sure he'd be stretched out elongated.
If you pause it when you're doing a spin attack, there's a few ways that Daxter gets back onto your shoulder, and it'll randomize whichever one it picks. One of them is he pulls on your hair, but he is stretched way out, and your hair is oh my god. It's really silly.
Honestly, Daxter being integrated into the main character model of Jak is another really good thing about this game.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, it's really good. But yeah, all that to say, this game doesn't have the same identity that those games have. There's not that slice that you can picture in your mind. I have a feeling of that game. When I think of this game, I think, oh, it's a fun game that I enjoyed.
Agreed. Yeah.
Even a game you don't like, Crash. You feel Crash when I say the word Crash. The overall feel. Well, there's not even a good word for it, but that overall energy.
You can describe it as when your eye sockets hurt because you roll them back too far. That's what I feel when I hear Crash.
Sure, but even you recognize that that energy to it, and that when people talk about it, it's that cultural kind of unspoken feel to something like that. Feel. I wish I had a better word for it. I know there is one.
It's the game feel, man.
Stop talking to me. No, but yeah, I'm sure there's a word for it. All that to say, I wrote here the elephant room in the room is Jak 2. Because Jak 2 went so far off from what this game is. It stripped out the collectathon part completely. Entirely.
You never hear about precursor.
Energy cells.
Energy cells again, right?
Yeah, ever. You hear the precursor orbs are like rare finds now in Jak 2 that are just like lets you buy new Dark Jak powers. Like combat is way more front and center. The platforming gauntlets are bigger and more fun and better in Jak 2. Way more racing. Way more other side activities to be doing, but it never feels disparate. Really, like that city. And again, the word energy, I'm going to say again, the energy of that city, that dingy, kind of grays, but with that neon there, with these bright characters in them, it just stands out, man. And especially knowing that exists, looking back at this game, you're like, oh, that is a video game. Like, this is a video game.
Yeah.
You know?
Jak 2 is Jak and Daxter.
Yeah.
That's what you think about.
Exactly.
It's also just Jak. What happened to Daxter?
Yeah, exactly. They realize that he is way too annoying to carry the title on his own. I dislike him immensely in this game. I find him incredibly annoying and not obnoxious.
Yeah, he's pretty obnoxious.
Yeah, and in Jak 2, because Jak talks now, it's way less of a big deal. Like,
I forgot Jak talks.
Yeah, that's like, in fact, the first thing. It is in universe that he doesn't speak in this game. Like, they mention it, like, Jak, for once, just say something to me, buddy. I'm gonna kill Praxis. Like, right out the gate. I remember it vividly. But seriously, like, it's part, and he's like, whoa. Like, Daxter's, like, taken aback that Jak speaks now. It's really funny.
I can't wait.
And then
you won't know why.
Kira, like, because Kira's also in the city, and you don't meet her till, like, a good chunk of the way into the game. But she's behind this veil, really uninterested in you. And you're talking to her and she doesn't recognize you. But
I do remember that.
But Daxter she recognizes. She's like, oh, hey, Daxter, how's it going? Like, yeah, no worries. And she just thinks you're this annoying guy with him. And then she meets you like, Jak? And you're like, yeah, what's up, Kira? You're like, you talk? What is happening? Like,
I do remember that.
Yeah, so it's in universe. He doesn't speak in this game.
That's very silly.
I agree.
You won't know until the time comes, but I can't wait for you to finish. Not just play. Obviously, I want you to play, but finish Dead Space 2.
Dude, I cannot tell you how excited I am to... Because we played Dead Space 1. I played Dead Space 1 for the first time ever.
Yeah, last year.
And loved it.
It's very good.
Like, that. When I think of games where I'm like, let me just give someone a game that they will have a blast playing... Dead Space is at the top of that list. Like, right near a couple others of my go-tos for someone who just wants a fun game to play. That is a ripper on a good time.
It's so
I'm
good.
so stoked for 2. I can finally watch that Jacob Geller video.
I don't think, even after Portal 2, I still don't think I had laughed as much in any game than more than I did in Dark Souls 2. I mean,
Dark Souls 2?
Yeah.
Sorry, what game? I only heard Dark Souls 2. Okay,
Dead Space 2.
Interesting. I am so stoked to play this game. I've heard so many good things about it.
Is it Dark Souls or Dark Souls 2 that the Onion Knight is... Well, I mean, he's always just, like, thinking. But as you're walking up to him, like, before you even see him, you just hear this endless loop.
I think it's Dark Souls 1. Like, while he's sitting outside of Sen's Fortress. I found our Twitter clip. Yeah, so all that to say, this game just doesn't have a place, I think, in our collective gaming memory. And I would argue not even just because of Jak 2. I think this game as it is, it doesn't really have a place. And that's not because it's not good. Like, I think it's a really good game, and every time I play it, I go, why do I feel so little about this game? Like, I'm playing it and I'm having fun. It's got energy, character, all the things that I talked about these other games, but...
Even the whole series in general, I mean, what are they? Naughty Dog is really the poster child of Sony's first-party developers at this point. Even in their entire catalog, the Jak series
Crash
is the least of them.
Yeah, Crash, Uncharted, Last of Us.
Yeah.
That's the Trinity. The holy Trinity of Naughty Dog. You got Jak.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah. It's it's interesting.
And then within that, I guess there are 4 or 5 games, but even within that, the first one is the least of them.
Yeah, agreed. Well, that's it for me, man. You have anything else you want to say about this game?
I don't think I do. Happy I played it. I could finally put that one to bed.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll play it again, though.
I agree. I think my 3 is plenty for me. But it makes me excited to jump into 2 as well.
Yes.
Which is one of my favorite games. I love Jak 2.
Before we played this, you had said we should play Jak 2. And I said, I really want to play Jak 1. It's more of a platformer. And it's also, I just think it's a better game. It's a more focused game. Maybe that's not totally the case. And I am misremembering 2. I suspect, having just finished 1... Excuse me, beer's getting to me. Having just finished 1, I have a feeling 2 is going to be my favorite.
Yeah, I think so as well. Even if it's not your cup of tea, I would say it probably will be. But
if the platforming is cleaned up a bit,
and again, it's not as much the focus. I think you miscategorized me a little bit, or you misquoted me. We were talking about Crash, and I said maybe Crash isn't for me. I don't think that's the case with this game. I think some of the platforming is not very well implemented. We talked about the jump button. We talked about the weight and momentum of the first jump, which is so important. I said jump button. I meant double jump. The way it's implemented and the amount to which it's used for that double jump, and the weight and momentum of the first jump, missing those platforms way too often. Those are big. I don't think it's just that I don't like it. I would say it's not very great. Well, you got to remember, Jak 2 is not as much about the platforming. What's interesting?
I'm off of Jak 2. I just wanted to correct it.
No, I know. Something you'd said this came earlier. Off of that, I guess. It's not as much about the platforming, but there are big platforming sections in it, which are set in typically precursor temples.
Is it cleaned up a bit, that platforming?
Honestly, it's been a while, but I'm sure it is because I remember it far more fondly.
Even if there are large platforming gauntlets, my favorite area in this game was a huge platforming gauntlet.
Typically this Jak 2 is going to have a lot more, the platforming will be a longer stretch, a gauntlet kind of style, intermixed within the combat and the arenas and the races and the other things you're doing around the city, basically.
And maybe that's why I liked that area so much, because it wasn't just trying to get across this river so I could do the other part of the level. I mentioned jumping up just whatever innocuous set of stairs and having to double jump everyone. If it is intentionally, this is what you're doing in this very tight and closed space, I like that more, because when I die, it feels like, okay, let's jump in there again. It's not just like, oh my god, this is so lame.
Yeah.
Why is this happening to me? So I will probably enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm excited to try it. Any excuse for me to play Jak 2 again. Sure. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, some follow-up episodes. Jak 2, Epic Mickey 2, Sly 2, which we didn't play Sly 1 this time. And we talked about another sequel, Catalyst, Mirror's Edge Catalyst. So
yeah, it'd be fun.
Literally a follow-up series.
That'll be good.
Yeah. But we're gonna take a quick break. You'll see us in just a moment. We're gonna get some refills and talk about some more games.
Yep, excited.
And we do want to mention, remind you, if you've made it this far, give us that like, maybe a subscribe if you're not already, and hit us up on Patreon. A $2 tier will get you into our Discord, and tell me why I should love. Not Ratchet and Clank, but Crash Bandicoot. See, I can't even remember the name. Honestly, it's a rough one for me. I did try to play it last week, right after this game. So come yell at me. I'll invite that. I'll take it. Take one for the team, Zach.
You're such a noble man.
That's right. That's me. And also hit us up on social media. We are Unpatched Gaming on both Instagram and Twitter. And we'll see you in a moment.
Yep.
And welcome back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast. You didn't leave. It's been like a second. I don't know why I do that.
I hope you didn't leave.
Yeah. Yeah, please stay. We're here to talk about 2 new games. This is Epic Mickey, which
brand
we were
new, just hit the shelves.
Correct, yeah, new to us. So Epic Mickey, which actually we were both most excited for in this series.
Oof, yeah, some more Specter in our lives.
Yes, and just the bizarre fact that Deus Ex Man made a Mickey game.
Deus Ex Man made a Mickey game. That's your marketing
bizarre.
right there.
It's really odd, and the marketing for Epic Mickey is really incredible.
The art leak,
yeah, the art leak, and really just the tone of the game. We were just talking about American McGee's Alice. I think this is doing a little bit of that, kind of taking something beloved, some family,
typically whimsical.
Yeah. Some family-oriented, whimsical story, and taking in this really dark direction. So we were really excited for this. And Mushroom Men, I wanted to play it for a long time.
I didn't play this. We'll talk about why this got played at all, actually, here in a little bit. But I did play it as a young child. This was one of the first Wii games I ever played, I think.
Oh, really?
It's, one of the...
According to... Might be on the front of the box, but someone on here, it's the best Wii game since Mario Galaxy.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it only came out a year after, so I don't know what came out in between those. Maybe it's true, because it's not a bad game. I actually enjoyed what I played. I didn't finish either of these.
I'm excited to hear what you have to say about it. It looks fun.
It was a ton of
I'd
fun.
like to revisit it. But all that to say... we were unfortunately incredibly disappointed with Epic Mickey.
Yes.
To where I typically, as you all know, like to maintain a very optimistic attitude toward games, and I am
left my hat off.
I have having a hard time with this one, so I'm just going to be really brutally honest and say I don't think this is a game worth anyone's time.
It's rough.
It's I can see the heart beating faintly at the center. I can see it, but it is overturned by a couple things. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about it because I don't have much good to say about it. But I will say the first thing that stands out is everyone likes to complain about Skyward Sword's, I forget her name, Fee or something, and how frequently she pops up and gives you tutorials, especially in the beginning of the game. Every step of this game, you are explicitly told what to do and how to do it. There are some optional things you can go off and do. Outside
there are a couple
of what
secrets in the levels.
Yeah, but there is one character who tells you exactly what you're supposed to be doing, sometimes how to do it, and then you're supposed to go. Like, I understand, making games, like, the excuse would be, oh, this is for kids. I've been a child.
Yeah.
I figured it out. Like, I just did.
We played Super Nintendo games.
Yeah. These were not handholdy games.
Children today make computers that communicate with each other inside of Minecraft.
They will figure it out.
Yeah.
So that's brutal. I think that the platforming is extremely basic. The levels are not built around it. You occasionally jump here or there. It's very, you'll kind of jump from one section to the next. It's very slippery. It's very imprecise. The levels aren't fun to go through because of it. There's no, let me,
we played probably a third of it, it seems like.
Yeah, that seems to be about it. And there's no, specifically in the 3D platforming sections of the game, because there are some 2D sections that are very short and inoffensive, but the 3D sections are, the goals are very bland. They're not ever doing anything interesting with the mechanics, either paint or remove the paint with a thinner.
That's my biggest takeaway here is that they're not doing anything interesting. It seems to be completely uninspired.
Yeah, by the numbers, there's nothing interesting going on here.
In the gameplay, we in the very beginning talked about why we were interested, that tone.
Yeah.
It is, and it's great. It looks great. Just even the art style aside, the graphics for a Wii game, this looks really good.
Yeah, and I would say the color is a little bit like it just what's the word? The contrast it's very muted.
Yeah,
and I didn't like that so much, but everything else, you're right. And some of the designs of the mechanical Disney characters, like Donald and stuff, like just look really interesting, like very, very dark. It's engaging in that aspect, but it's hard for me to quantify. I wish I was able to put more, I guess have a better handle on like why when I'm dropped into, into a like a Mario 64 level, right? When I'm dropped into this game, it's open, even the like linear sections of it, like climbing the mountain to get to the Bob-omb, like King Bob-omb or whatever, right? On the way up, there's 10 different things happening. There are, at least 3 different ways I can progress through it. There's no paintbrush. There's straight up just jumping and moving in this game. But because there are cannonballs rolling down, because if you're smart, you can like jump up and try to get up to a higher platform. You can look out and see other things to do while you're there. It's just, there's a lot going on. You're being filled with a lot of information. You're getting a handle on these really fun movement mechanics. You have a bunch of options at your disposal, a bunch of ways to handle what's being thrown at you. Trial, error, just have some fun. There's one way to do this in Mickey, and there's the platforming doesn't feel good. You have a jump and a double jump. Like that's it. It's incredibly bland. You're not given much to work with, even to try to have fun in there. You're not given the tools, I'd argue, that you would need to really. I guess it would have to be more open. Like I can thin out huge chunks of the level, or I can paint in huge chunks of the level. I can paint in new things that aren't there.
Yeah, that would be one of the more interesting things.
Because I should have put a podcast on. I think it was some like obscure, deep cut theology podcast, like something just really dry, and just played through the level. Like it was not an enjoyable experience for me.
No, and I hate being reminded of mechanics. I'm one of the people that complain. That's why I didn't finish Skyward Sword. I honestly was a little offended when playing that back in the day. I was like, I know how to play a freaking video game. Don't remind me for the 7th time how to play press the A button or move a controller. You've reminded me about this for 5 hours now. Stop. And then, I've seen videos about it, like you'll get an item, whatever it is, out of a chest. A text box will appear to tell you, or I think the order it is Fee will come up and give you some in-game example of how to use it. Then the text box appears when the cutscene is over to tell you the sort of mechanical use for it, even though that purpose was just served. And then when you use it for the first time in the dungeon, that happens again. Fee comes up and is like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do with that new item. Here's how you do it. Here's how you waggle a controller. Again, 3 times for every item. It's really insane. I just, that doesn't click with me, like how someone could even think that's a good idea. And those people were kids who played video games also. Like Miyamoto was a kid who made the first Zelda. He knows that kids are intuitive. I hate that excuse so much. I think it's stupid.
I agree. I cannot agree more. Kids figure it out, man.
The camera. You mentioned the camera. It's rough, and that's true of Mushroom Man. There's going to be some sort of cross discussion between these. Both of them use the same camera scheme, which many Wii games do. You typically your thumb is on the A button. That's why it's so big and placed where it is on the Wiimote. And then you just move your thumb up, and you've got that sort of like rolling D-pad, and that serves as your C stick. Typically, both of them do that to the same effect. Once you get into a crowded area, it's difficult to control. Wii camera controls, they were rough. I do like in Mickey, or maybe it wasn't Mushroom Man. Heck, maybe it's both. You can press the C button on the nunchuck to just turn it around to look at you. That's always a nice touch.
Yeah, that's that Epic Mickey did that.
And honestly, it's just a little boring.
I think boredom is the main reason I stopped. Like, I can stomach these other things typically. I can't stomach boredom in a video game. That's not true. I can't stomach aimless boredom in a video game.
Sure.
I think it can be used very well. There are games that I think Red Dead 2 is a great example of a game that does sections of boredom to great effect. Epic Mickey, there's no reason a 3D platformer should ever be boring. It should be back-to-back exploration, fun, jumping.
Yes.
This is not that.
No, and Mushroom Men is almost that.
Talk to me.
It's a fun game. So
It's been a long time.
Yeah, and I have wanted to play this game since I was a kid. It's always been in the back of my mind. We were on a game hunt recently, and I found right next to each other at the game store this and Death Jr. both for $7. It's like, this is my day. I'm so happy to have these, and finally got around to playing Mushroom Man. I'm happy that it happened. Didn't finish it like Epic Mickey. I just didn't have time. Let me rephrase that.
Please.
I discovered Attack on Titan this week. So I would say I didn't have time. I mean, that took priority over pretty much everything in my life. And I think rightfully so. But honestly, I didn't make the time to finish it. Because Attack on Titan is just something special. But Mushroom Man, I did play a little more than a third of it, probably close to halfway through, because it's pretty short. It's shorter than Epic Mickey, I believe. The 3D platforming here is a little more understated than Epic Mickey, I think. There is platforming, but the combat and getting those collectibles are more of the focus, and exploring the level not so much through the platforming, but like knocking stone down, so you now have this rock that has created sort of a bridge or something like that. You're doing some environmental puzzles to get through the level primarily. I would still call this a 3D platformer, even though we've talked about the definition sort of broadening a little too much. I'd still fit this in there.
Would you kind of compare it to what It Takes Two is doing?
No, I think It Takes Two is way more of a platformer.
What I'm talking about, though, is like a lot of it is environmental.
Not quite to that degree.
Okay.
No. So it's weird. It's not quite doing either of those things to a great degree. Which, honestly, exploring most of the levels was not the best part. The parts where you were platforming were fun, and I think maybe a little more competent than Epic Mickey.
I think it executes its tone better.
I didn't finish Epic Mickey. Neither of us did, so I don't want to jump to that because the tone of Epic Mickey just seems awesome. Or are you saying Epic Mickey does it better?
No, I'm saying that I think Mushroom Man executes it better in terms of like the actual tone it's going for. I think
I won't agree or disagree yet.
I think, dude, the Gremlins ruin so much of the tone for Epic Mickey.
Okay, that's a big deal. Yeah.
Like, I think that they ruin a huge chunk of the tone for Epic Mickey. And then I think just being frustrated with the like, I am so bored platforming, I'm not engaging with the rest of the environment. I'd call it good art design, but not good level design.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Whereas
I'll give you
I think because this game is more competent, you're paying attention to it more. I think the way that you, at least from what I remember about it, is the way that you're actually, like every part of the game feeds into this tone really well. Of just
yes, absolutely. It's very cohesive and right up my alley. I really like the sort of grungy tone that it has.
There's a word for it, Tyler. Could you please enlighten us on what that word is?
No, you'd have to.
Mushroom punk?
Yes, correct. I think that was coined by the developer for She Remembers Caterpillars, which is a very weird name, but that is a mushroom punk aesthetic. Yeah, mushroom punk. It's that, and it delivers on that very well. Actually, no, I won't say that. It involves mushrooms, but the idea of mushroom punk, which if you...
This conversation. No. Okay, it involves mushrooms, okay? But it is not mushroom punk.
Correct.
Just because there's AI, it's not cyber punk. It's just cyber, Zach.
Correct. So, Mushroom Punk involves just this crazy overgrowth of fungus, and mycelium might be a huge motif. If you saw She Remembers Caterpillar, you'd see immediately. And I've jokingly tried to coin the term coral punk when looking through the
FF10, right?
Yeah, the art book for Final Fantasy X. That's very like being on a beach, like let's say the beginning of Kingdom Hearts is not coral punk because it's on a beach. Final Fantasy X and the architecture in that game,
the entire world is fed into and built atop this idea, really.
Yeah, so that's where and I don't know exactly the history of the term steampunk or cyberpunk, but it's really integral. Like, for it to be a punk thing, it's got to be integral to the entire aesthetic design. I wouldn't really call this mushroom punk, even though it is explicitly mushroom people.
That's fair.
It's more junk punk, if that's a thing. I don't know. I just made that up.
You're beautiful.
Yeah, I try. So it focuses a lot on combat, which is the weakest part of this game. It's a Wii game with waggle combat, and I hate it. I really don't like that's it. You just waggle the controller, and you do 3 to 4 moves in your combo with whatever weapon you have. Now, I do like the use of the 4 different kinds of weapons. You've got a spear that can jab several times. You can jump and stab someone in the air. If you're being surrounded by enemies, you can switch to a sword and do really quick spin attacks and things like that to get out of swarms. You've got, my favorite was the hammer, because the swarms, at least up to the half of the game that I played, were not very prevalent, and neither was aerial combat. It was more one-on-one. Maybe there were 3 enemies, and the hammer really allows you to do a lot of damage to single enemies. And finally, you got special weapons like a flamethrower, a saw. Those are fine. They require ammo, typically batteries or a lighter fluid or something. But the hammer was my favorite. But there's one thing in this game that I thought was so much fun. I repeated sections in a couple levels just because I was having so much fun with it. And that is this game's version of a double jump. You don't actually have one. If you jump a second time and hold it, you glide. You grab your mushroom cap and you float around. And the physics of that and just the way you so seamlessly glide above the floor if you get it on a really nice incline, it's great. It feels really good, and you can zoom around the level. And because there is a lot of verticality, so if you're going down a level, you can get from places very quickly, and you've got a roll as well. So if you're running, and you don't run, you just walk at the default speed, which is like a jog, but you can roll and jump out of that into a glide. It's a ton of fun, and that's why I would call it a little more competent than Mickey. You have a kit that you're able to do platforming things with, even if the levels. I guess the platforming is. I said the platforming is not that great. The level design is not very conducive to what you could do with that kit,
sure,
which is a pretty decent kit. There is one level in there that's really probably the best part in the game, even though I didn't finish it. It's right towards the end of the 4th chapter, I think. Maybe it is the 4th chapter. But you go up this huge tower. I don't know if it's like... I think it's someone's bathroom. It's like a very tall area. I don't know exactly what it is. But... I think it's a bathroom, but you just go up this space, but there's one of the mushroom men have sort of made this hot air balloon, and the Amanita mushrooms, which are the bad guys, because drugs, those are bad, they've sort of like doused your flames, because you have to hit some candles to get the air balloon to go a little higher as you're trying to float up this entire area. You have to sort of go through the level twice. Platform up a certain amount to kill the bad guys, then just pick it up and look at it.
No, it's good.
I mean, it's fine. Okay. To kill the guys that have doused the flames, relight the flames, and you might be able to do 2 or 3 segments of that gauntlet at a time, and then you jump in the balloon and you're able to go up those few areas, and there's maybe like 12 or 15. It's a pretty decent amount. And then you've also unlocked new secrets. There's plenty of secrets in this level. So now you can jump down to new areas, and then you'll have to platform back up after unlocking that. It's just a really, really good loop. I thought it was a really expertly implemented level. It did everything it was going for, just the right amount of combat. It allowed you to use the whole platforming kit pretty well. And the structure of the level really made the camera no issue at all. So I liked it. I would have liked to finish it. I would have if it weren't for the all-consuming discovery of Attack on Titan. But we're unfortunately needing to move on, so I won't be able to. But I'm glad I finally got to play it.
Yeah, I'm glad you did too.
Yeah. I don't have much. I wrote here in Epic Mickey. Wii camera controls, oof, and for Mushroom Men, waggle combat, oof.
Things that are just
they're specific to the Wii. It's a very unique console that had a difficult control scheme.
Was it the Wii that was pretty cheap to develop for, though? I think like the Wii was I believe one of the cheapest consoles to develop for.
I don't know if it was cheap to develop for, but it has some of
the most prevalent shovelware.
Yeah, maybe more than the DS, but certainly on par with
I think
the DS.
More. It's got to be more because the DS had a huge audience, but the Wii's audience was like that whole family kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's just easy, easy money.
But the
chicken
DS, the DS had some pretty decent shovelware, actually.
Do you have an example off the top of your head?
Yeah, Duck Amuck. I would consider that shovelware.
That's not shovelware. That's a treasure.
Well, see, that's the thing. You would anywhere else consider that whatever. It's a stupid licensed Looney Tune game. It's might as well be tossed in with the shovelware. But it's pretty decent, and it's got some things that were interesting. Like another one I've got is Kiwi.
Kiwi's great.
That seems like it could be lumped in with shovelware.
No. Do you know who developed that game?
No, I don't.
It's the Sonic guy. Forget his name. Yeah, I don't know why it's blanking right now. Yeah.
It has nothing going on. It's a single, which I'm not complaining about. I'm not complaining about. But I'm saying there are things that could easily be dismissed as shovelware that are actually pretty decent, and I forget what it's called.
When I think shovelware, I think
it's called
chicken shoot.
Bubble something, but you use the microphone.
Yeah, Yuji Naka.
Interesting.
Yeah, Sonic Team. That's my boy.
I'm not saying it's bad. It looks very interesting, and I want to play it. But
he led development for Phantasy Star Online? What? All right, sorry.
Anyway, there are plenty of things on the DS that look like they could be tossed in the discount bin, and were, that are pretty good.
I mean,
at the very least, interesting design concepts.
Let's do some DS shovelware episodes.
Bro, if we dug into the DS, that would be my bread and butter. I love the DS.
Me too. It's one of my favorites.
It is my favorite.
I think DS, 3DS, those are some of the best games, best consoles. There's one.
I'm happy you came around.
Yeah, it was always there.
Yeah, but you always defaulted to the Game Boy.
Well, I still think the Game Boy Advance probably has one of the best catalogs of any game ever.
I think the DS through 3DS, that whole family.
It's also sizably anyway. No, we can talk about it.
I'm just saying. Their catalog aside, or the depth of their catalog, I think the DS through 3DS is the.
You can play Metal Gear Solid 3 on the 3DS.
I think those are the best consoles. Not my favorite. I love playing the Switch. I'm not going to say it's what I'll play over anything else. But I think some of the most interesting game design was happening there. It had the most going on. First to have Wi-Fi, it had the dual screens, touchscreen, of course, the microphone, and the two slots. Some games used the two slots.
It
was really interesting.
In Fire Emblem.
Yes, correct.
That's what it's really for.
Yes. Absolutely. Why would you want to do anything other than blow on anime characters?
This is really, we've reached a new high as human beings, really.
I don't know if I would say that.
Yeah, me neither. Last thing to talk about then we have today is our continued journey through Hitman 2. We're talking about Hitman 2's second level, Colombia. One of my favorite places in the world, actually.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten to go there yet, but I love Latin America. I love just beautiful out there, man. Absolutely gorgeous. And my kind of gorgeous as a Texan, that hot kind of, I love it. It's good stuff. So being able to explore a super decked out mansion right next to a kind of, like river, just normal people, houses stacked on each other, little small spaces. It's and a little bar. It's a really cool environment. But unfortunately for me, what I took away is that this is definitely just kind of more Hitman 1 designed. It's three very disparate assassinations that are happening. The environment itself is larger, like overall, but you're doing one thing in one area, one thing in another area, one thing in another area. Very little interaction between the two. Messing with their schedules is not even a thing. You just kind of find the way to kill them and move on.
I'm happy to hear that. I only played it twice. I didn't finish it the first time. I played about half of it, and then I had to get busy with work, so I didn't finish it that time, and then started over. So 1.5 times.
Sure.
I'm happy to hear that. I won't go back then if there's not really anything particularly
I spent about, I think, 6 hours or so playing this level. Honestly, though, 4 of those was the first time I beat it. I really dug, maybe 3, but I really dug in that first time. I explored every nook and cranny that I could find, really watched people, interacted with different folks. I had a lot of fun that first time. My favorite kill is definitely feeding the guy to his own hippopotamus.
What?
It's super. So basically, you find a note. You see the hippo, and the first time I was like, I'm gonna be a horrible human, and I saved and shot it to see what would happen. I was hoping it'd kill me, but no, it just dies, or it goes away. Which is dumb. It should have just murdered you if you shot it.
Yes.
But basically, you find a note saying, "Oh no, the hippo has stopped eating fruits and vegetables. It only desires meat." And there's people's shoes in the pond and stuff. But you can find a chunk of meat, like a meat bone, is one of the weapons you can use to hit people with. You can find one, and you can toss it in there, and then he really creepy hippo noises comes out and starts making these guttural hippo sounds, craving dinner. The zookeeper, I don't know, some sort of zoologist comes down and is like, wow, he's active again. I need to go get the guy. And so he goes and gets this drug lord. He's like, your hippo's back. He's here. And he's like, oh, thank you so much. I'll send you your payment. Just leave me alone with the hippo. And so he's sitting there talking to him, and you can just boop, push him in. And it is one of the most violent deaths I have ever seen in Hitman. So basically, the hippo just submerges, it just goes away, I'm sure, just to rework its model or whatever, and he's like, no, and it just basically crunches him in half, and there's blood everywhere, and he's screeching and flail. Dude, it is so satisfying.
That's fantastic. I didn't do anything interesting.
Yeah, it was really good.
I disguised myself as a hippie. So there's 3 drug lords. The idea is there's 3 drug lords that have all sort of
you got the grower
randomly come together, right?
No. So it's they're all part of the same drug family. One guy's the drug lord, the other guy is his grower, and the other guy is his, and the girl's his lawyer. Yeah.
Oh, she's a lawyer.
Yeah, or the public face, I think, is the way they phrased it. It just seemed lawyerish. I don't know.
Sure. So I didn't really do anything interesting. I shot all of them.
Oh,
I just shot all of them. So I tried to kill the guy, the grower. So there's some hippies that have flown in from America, and they are hiding cocaine inside of these the Volkswagen the Volkswagen vans. They're hiding them inside of little kitschy replicas of those that are painted with some sort of paint that will stop dogs from sniffing it. So one of them breaks. The one he brought broke in transit, and you need to fix it. So I found the glue to fix it, but you're supposed to put poison in it first.
Oh.
So it lets you fix it, and then you can take it and finish the mission. But it doesn't. Finishing the mission doesn't kill the guy.
Oh, lame.
Because you have to put poison in it first. Yeah. So then I was like, fine, I'll shoot him. And that was that. I explored the what is my favorite part of the area. The whole level is the. Oh, was it coffee? What are the... Oh, cocoa.
Yeah,
it
cocoa.
Was the cocoa fields. So that was a pretty cool environment.
I think my favorite had to be the... I really enjoyed the mansion. I really liked his
don't
mansion.
even remember how I killed that guy. I remember almost nothing about the mansion.
I love the mansion. He's got a wine cellar I would kill for.
Really?
It's amazing.
See, we talked about this before. I am not such a fan of the way we decided to play these games.
Yeah.
Pretty consistently, I've not given myself enough time to explore the levels and give them their due. You are almost always finding much more than I am. So I think I'll be able to do that with this next one. So we were supposed to play 2 today. There was some miscommunication.
Whoops.
And I did play the 2, so I think I'll be able to skip ahead and get a head start on not Colorado. It's some American white picket fence town wherever.
Oh, is that the next one?
No, so you got 2 more. Got one more after before that one, but that's the next one I'm going to play.
I'm so excited.
That's the one I'm most excited for from this game. So I'll try to dive in as much as I possibly can. But the next area does seem like it's got a lot to offer as well. Unfortunately, completely disparate targets. Yeah, but still a pretty interesting environment. I wish I could have given this one a little more time, because it does seem like there's a lot of fun stuff with the mansion. I don't think the lawyer's path, and she's the one that I focused on most.
She's the least for me.
Yeah, she's not very interesting, but she's the one who takes up her entire schedule is in town.
Got it.
Which was for me the more interesting part. You're just exploring all the houses, but she's not that interesting. And then the cave with the drug lord or the grower was fine. He doesn't have anything particularly interesting going on. He doesn't spec the fields. You can kill him out there.
You can. He has a little pet project that he's working on where
the submarine.
No. Like he's trying to get the. You're talking about the guy, the grower, right?
Yeah.
So he has a little flower that he's trying to find a way to lace into this high quality cocaine, and it's in this really carefully taken care of little incubator UV light, and stuff. I basically disguised myself as one of the guys and just kind of hung around in there for a little while because I saw him going in there once in a while.
Yeah.
But I disguised myself as one of the grower guys. There's 3 guys in this little tiny lab, and they are like, oh, be careful with that. And then he comes in, he's like, you got to be very careful with this one. He doesn't talk about anything else. He goes right up there and he's like, got to be really careful with this one. I'm monitoring it at all times by my iPad. Don't let this happen. And so I wait for him to leave. I take the other 2 guys out, and I hide their bodies, and I just turn that thing off. And so he comes hightailing it with. He's a little old man, so he's
limping
around in short shorts.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Yeah. So and he's hightailing as fast as he can, so his guys aren't with him, and he comes in to check on it. He won't even look at you. He'll walk right past you, and he'll just be like, look around a little bit. Yeah, we're good. Take him out right there. It's a fun little thing because I followed him his whole way. I kept following him, and
Yeah.
Trying to listen in. The other thing he's really passionate about is this like machine that will automatically do what like a lot of the guys who are processing the cocaine are doing for him. I'm sure there's something you can do with that. I never did it though for some reason. I'll have to go back.
There's also something going on with a submarine, which I
became the submarine repairman.
Yeah, and you just drop the submarine.
I actually didn't.
What happens?
I don't know. I didn't do that part actually.
Well, you can drop it and then it just sinks, but the way it's dropped. Like, I don't foresee anyone being behind it. Well, I do in that, like, that's the only thing I see that could happen, but it seems like it wouldn't make much sense. It doesn't seem very plausible. Which, I mean, being eaten by a hippo isn't either.
Maybe someone's in it. Like, you can get him in it and then,
maybe.
like, sink it without any, like, pressure or something like that.
Possibly.
I don't know.
Not sure.
I'll have to mess around with it. I didn't do that one either.
Definitely give the next one its due. It sounds like you've explored this one a lot. There's one area that, I mean, maybe I will go back because the first area, I mean, of course you can do whatever you want, but what is obviously the first area, you're closest to it, they're kind of pointing that out. The intended first area is fine. I didn't really care much for that, but the second target is very interesting. And okay. I just shot her. I got in a place to be able to shoot her. I rushed it. I told you today I finished it 2 minutes before I had to come here. So I didn't really give it its due. I played it once in 30 minutes. Maybe I'll go just to try to do that target again. I'm looking forward to you playing it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see kind of what I feel overall about Hitman 2 as we play the rest of it.
So far, for me, it's more Hitman. I know, we talked about it last week. I didn't get what everyone else got out of Miami.
Yeah, just Hitman 1, but bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's my opinion so far. I'm excited to keep moving.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be it for us today.
That's it.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining us. If you did make it this far, please consider a like and subscribe, a review on whatever podcast platform you are checking us out on, and also hit us up on social media, Instagram and Twitter. We are Unpatched Gaming on both of those. And please join the community. Tell me why I'm wrong. We went back and forth about Jak and Daxter, and
Crash Bandicoot.
I've sort of expressed my, I might even say, disdain for Crash Bandicoot.
That's fair.
Come tell me why I'm wrong.
It's unfair, but
yeah, that's sure. Come tell me why I'm wrong. I want to hear from you. The $2 tier on Patreon, it helps keep the lights on, and just helps us get some of these games. I might have Epic Mickey, but Zach's got to pick it up. Some of these games get a little higher, but we focus on older games primarily, and it helps us bring interesting discussion.
Games. Yeah,
correct. That is probably the bigger cost of the podcast. But come join the community, $2 on Patreon. We'd love to see you there. And please don't forget to share what you love with who you love.